This is the story of a mother in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, who spent her whole life sacrificing for her only son, determined to help him become the first doctor in their family. On a chilly autumn day, while the golden leaves tumbled through her quiet street, she opens her fridge hoping for comfort and finds nothing to eat. But the real heartbreak doesn't come from the empty shelves. It comes when her grown son, now working at Lancaster General Hospital, tells her it isn't his problem. The story unfolds as a heartfelt confession to her sister, full of small-town details, everyday struggles, and the disbelief that settled in her heart as she realized just how alone she truly was. Sarah, you're not going to believe what happened. I'm still sitting here in my kitchen, staring at my phone, and I just can't wrap my head around it. Can you talk? I know it's early for you out in Ohio, but I need to tell someone before I lose my mind completely. It's one of those crisp October mornings we used to love, remember? The kind where you can see your breath when you step outside, and the maple trees are dropping those red and gold leaves everywhere. My little street, Chestnut, is just carpeted with them. Mrs. Henderson next door was out there this morning with her rake, making those neat piles like she does every fall. I watched her from my window, and for a second, everything felt normal. You know that smell in the air? That mix of wood smoke and rain coming. Maybe a hint of someone's pumpkin spice candle drifting from an open window. It should have been a beautiful morning. But Sarah, I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. And before you say anything, just let me explain the whole thing, okay? Because it's not just about being hungry. It's about what Michael said to me when I finally broke down and called him. You remember how tight things have been since I retired from the hospital housekeeping job last year. My Social Security barely covers the rent on this place, and then there's the electric, the water, the phone. I've been managing, I really have. I shop the sales at Giant, I clip coupons, I make things stretch. Last week I even went to that food pantry over at St. James Episcopal, the one on Duke Street, across from the old post office building. But they were only open Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and by the time I got there Thursday, they'd run out of everything except some dented cans of green beans and a loaf of bread that was already showing spots of mold around the edges. I took them anyway. I'm not proud, Sarah. At 73 years old, I took moldy bread and dented cans because what else was I supposed to do? So yesterday, I ate the last of the peanut butter, straight from the jar with a spoon because I'd run out of bread 2 days before, and I thought, okay, tomorrow I'll figure something out. Tomorrow is when my neighbor Carol usually goes to the Central Market, and sometimes she asks if I need anything. Or maybe I'd walk down to CVS on King Street and see if they had any of those marked-down sandwiches in the cooler section. You know the ones I mean. They put the orange stickers on them when they're about to expire. But then I woke up this morning, and Sarah, my hands were shaking. Not from nerves, from actual hunger, and my head felt light like I might faint if I stood up too fast. I sat here at this kitchen table, this same table where I used to make Michael do his homework every night, where I'd count out my tips from cleaning rooms at the old Brunswick Hotel, and I just started crying. I'm not a crier, you know that. When Dad died, I didn't cry. When I lost the Brunswick job and had to scramble to find work at the hospital, I didn't cry. But sitting here in my kitchen, with the autumn light coming through the window and those leaves swirling around outside like some kind of cruel postcard of a perfect fall day, I just broke down, and I thought, Sarah, my son is a doctor. My son, who I raised by myself. My son, who never went hungry a single day in his life because I made sure of it. My son works 5 miles from here at Lancaster General Hospital, probably making more in a month than I made in a year scrubbing toilets and changing sheets. So I called him. I haven't asked Michael for money in 3 years, Sarah. You know that. Not since I borrowed $200 when my hot water heater died, and I paid him back within 3 months, remember? I sent him $50 a month until it was done because I don't like owing anyone, especially not my own son. But this morning, I was desperate. I picked up my phone, my hands still shaking, mind you, and I called his cell. It rang 4 times and I almost hung up. I was already rehearsing in my head how I'd explain it wasn't a big deal, how I'd just waited too long to go shopping, how maybe he could just Venmo me $40 so I could Uber over to Giant and get some groceries to last the week. He answered on the 5th ring. "Mom?" He sounded distracted like he always does lately, like I'm interrupting something important. "Michael, honey," I said, and I was trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to sound as desperate as I felt. "I'm sorry to bother you at work, but I'm between patients," he cut me off. "What's up?" "What's up?" Like I'm some acquaintance calling to chat about the weather. "I'm in a bit of a situation," I said, and I could hear my voice cracking. "I haven't eaten since yesterday morning, and I'm out of food, sweetheart. Everything. I don't have anything in the house." There was silence on the other end. Not the thoughtful kind of silence where someone is processing something serious. Just empty silence, like he was waiting for me to finish talking so he could move on with his day. "Michael?" I said. "I'm here," he said flatly. And Sarah, he said, and like I was telling him about a car that needs an oil change or a leaky faucet. Not like I was telling him his mother hasn't eaten in 24 hours. I took a breath. "I was wondering if you could help me out. Just until my check comes in next week. Maybe $40 or $50 so I can get to the store." That's when he said it, Sarah. That's when my son, the boy I gave up everything for, said the words I still can't believe came out of his mouth. "Mom, I'm at work. I don't have time for this." "That's not my problem. That's not my problem. I swear to God, Sarah, I thought I'd misheard him. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, like maybe there was something wrong with the connection." "What?" I said. "That's not my problem." His voice was cold, flat, like he was reading from a script. "You're an adult. You need to manage your own finances. I have my own bills, my own family to think about, his own family. Like I'm not his family. Like I'm some distant relative he feels obligated to humor with occasional phone calls on holidays." "Michael," I said. And now I wasn't trying to hide the desperation anymore. "I'm not asking you to support me. I'm asking for $40 for groceries. For food. I raised you by myself. I worked 2 jobs so you could—" "Here we go," he interrupted. And Sarah, there was actually annoyance in his voice. Annoyance. "I'm not going to have this conversation again, Mom. You chose to work those jobs. You chose to put me through medical school instead of saving for retirement. Those were your choices, my choices. As if sending him to medical school was like choosing between vanilla or chocolate ice cream. I worked at Brunswick until my knees gave out," I said. And I was crying now, couldn't help it. "I took double shifts at the hospital so you wouldn't have student loans. I ate ramen noodles and day-old bread so you could have a decent lunch every day. I gave up everything, Michael. Everything. And I never asked you to do that," he said, and his voice was so cold, Sarah, so utterly cold. "I have to go. I have patients waiting. Michael, please." "I'm hanging up now. Maybe try calling the county assistance office, or that church you used to go to. I'm sure they have programs for this sort of thing. This sort of thing. Like being hungry is a situation that happens to other people, not to his own mother." And then he hung up. Just ended the call. Didn't say goodbye, didn't say he'd think about it, didn't even suggest we talk later when he had more time. Just click, and he was gone. I sat there holding my phone for I don't know how long. The screen went dark, and I could see my reflection in it. This tired old woman with gray hair and hollow cheeks, sitting in a cold kitchen on a beautiful autumn morning, holding a phone like it might suddenly ring again with an apology. But it didn't ring. "Sarah, it's been 3 hours now, and it hasn't rung once. I keep trying to make sense of it. I keep playing back the conversation in my head, wondering if I said something wrong, if I approached it the wrong way. Maybe I should have waited until evening, called him at home instead of at work. Maybe I should have framed it differently, not mentioned all the sacrifices. He hates when I bring up the past, says I guilt-trip him, but Sarah, I wasn't trying to guilt-trip him. I was stating facts, true facts that he seems to have completely forgotten. Do you remember those years? God, you must remember. You visited that Christmas when Michael was in his second year of pre-med at Penn State, and I was working housekeeping at the hospital during the day and cleaning offices downtown at night. You asked me when I slept, and I laughed it off, said I'd sleep when I was dead. But I was exhausted, Sarah, bone-deep exhausted. Every muscle in my body ached all the time. I was 56 years old and felt like I was 80, but I did it because Michael was brilliant. You remember his grades, his test scores. The guidance counselor at McCaskey High School said he was Ivy League material, said he could do anything he wanted. And I wanted that for him. I wanted him to have the opportunities I never had. To never have to scrub someone else's toilet or pick up their dirty towels or smile and say yes, sir, to men who treated me like I was invisible. I paid for his undergraduate Sarah every penny. When he got into Penn State, I was so proud I couldn't see straight. 4 years at University Park? Do you know what that costs? I worked it out once. Between tuition, room and board, books and spending money, I paid over $120,000. $120,000 I didn't have, that I had to scrape together semester by semester, sometimes taking out small loans that I'd pay back with interest, sometimes working extra shifts until I was so tired I'd fall asleep on the bus ride home, and then medical school. Temple University School of Medicine in Philadelphia. Another 4 years, another small fortune. But by then, Michael had maturity, or so I thought. He had perspective. He'd seen how hard I worked. He'd come home for breaks and found me icing my swollen feet, taking aspirin for my back pain, drinking instant coffee because real coffee was too expensive. He graduated with honors. I was there, Sarah, sitting in the audience at the Leah Chorus Center in Philadelphia, wearing the only good dress I owned. That navy blue one from Boscov's that I'd bought on clearance 5 years earlier. I watched him walk across that stage in his cap and gown, watched him receive his diploma, and I cried. Not sad tears, proud tears. I thought, this is it. This is what all those years of sacrifice were for. My son is a doctor. His first job was at Reading Hospital, but he moved back here to Lancaster 3 years ago when a position opened up at Lancaster General. Cardiology. He's a cardiologist now, Sarah. He works with hearts. The irony isn't lost on me. He bought a house in Littitz. You know, that fancy development off Route 501 where all the doctors and lawyers live. Colonial-style homes with 3-car garages and professional landscaping. I've been there exactly twice. Once when he moved in, and once last Thanksgiving when he felt obligated to invite me because his wife's parents were coming, and it would look bad if his own mother wasn't there. His wife, Jennifer. She's nice enough, I suppose, though she looks at me sometimes like I'm a peculiar specimen she's trying to figure out. She teaches yoga, drives a BMW, wears Lululemon everything. They have 2 kids now. Emma is 5, and Logan just turned 3. Beautiful children. I've seen them maybe a dozen times total. I'm their grandmother, Sarah. And I've been to their house twice in 3 years. Michael used to invite me more often. Those first couple years after he moved back, he'd call and say, Mom, come over for dinner on Sunday. And I'd get dressed up. Buy a little something for the kids at Target. Take the bus all the way out to Littitz, 45 minutes each way, 2 different buses, and sit at their dining room table feeling like an outsider in my own son's life. Jennifer would serve these elaborate meals, quinoa this, organic that, and make polite conversation about my little apartment, and ask with this careful tone if I was managing okay on my own. Michael would check his phone throughout dinner, distracted, somewhere else in his head. The kids would get fussy, and Jennifer would whisk them away for baths and bedtime, leaving me and Michael sitting there with nothing to say to each other. The invitations stopped about a year ago. Now I'm lucky if I get a phone call on my birthday. But Sarah, even knowing all that, even understanding that we've grown apart, or whatever language you want to use to describe what's happened between us, I never thought he'd say what he said this morning. I never thought my son would tell me it's not his problem that I'm hungry. After he hung up, I just sat here for a while, staring at nothing. The sun came up higher, and the light through the window got brighter, and I could hear Mrs. Henderson's rake scraping the sidewalk, and somewhere a few streets over, church bells started ringing. First Presbyterian, probably, or maybe St. James. They do that Wednesday morning service, the bells chiming at 10 o'clock. I thought about calling you right away, but I didn't trust my voice. I thought about calling Carol next door, but pride stopped me. How do you tell your neighbor, "Hey, I haven't eaten in a day, can you spare some food?" when you've spent your whole life being the person who helps others, not the person who needs help? So I just sat here and I started thinking about all of it. All the choices I made, all the sacrifices, all the years of working myself to the bone. And I wondered, Sarah, I wondered if it was worth it. Not because I regret helping Michael become a doctor. I don't regret that. He's good at his job. I know he is, because I've heard other people talk about him. Patients who say Dr. Morrison saved their lives. Who say he's brilliant and caring and dedicated. Caring. That's what gets me. He's caring with his patients, but he can't spare $40 or a shred of empathy for his own mother. I keep replaying memories, Sarah. I can't help it. Like that time when Michael was 8 and he wanted a bicycle so badly. Remember that? All his friends had bikes, and he felt left out. I was working at the Brunswick then, and money was so tight. But I picked up extra weekend shifts for 2 months straight. Saved every dollar I could squeeze out of my paycheck. And on his birthday, I surprised him with this beautiful red Schwinn from Klein's bike shop downtown. The look on his face, Sarah, it was pure joy. He threw his arms around me and said, "You're the best mom in the world." Or when he was 14 and wanted to go on that school trip to Washington, D.C., $400 for 4 days. $400 I didn't have, but I called the school and asked if I could pay in installments, $50 a month for 8 months. The principal said yes, bless her heart. And Michael went on that trip, and he came back so excited, talking about the monuments and the Smithsonian, and how one day he was going to work somewhere important, make a difference in the world. I'm glad he's making a difference, Sarah. I truly am. I'm glad he's saving lives, healing hearts, making good money, living in a nice house with a beautiful wife and healthy children. I wouldn't want it any other way, but did it have to cost me everything? Did becoming successful mean he had to lose whatever basic human decency I tried to instill in him? I raised him to be kind, Sarah. I raised him to help people who needed help. I raised him to understand that family takes care of family, that we don't abandon each other when things get hard. And yet here I sit, 73 years old, hungry, cold, because I'm trying to keep the heat down to save money, alone in this little apartment with its worn carpet and its second-hand furniture, and my son's words echoing in my head, "That's not my problem." I'm trying not to be bitter. I really am. Because bitterness is poison, and I've seen what it does to people. Remember Aunt Louise, how she died angry at everyone, convinced the world owed her something? I don't want to be like that. But Sarah, I'm hurt. I'm so deeply hurt I can barely breathe. The thing is, I don't even need much. I'm not asking for fancy things. I shop at Giant, buy store brands, stretch everything as far as it'll go. I don't eat out. I don't go to movies. I don't take vacations. My entertainment is watching TV shows on my old television and reading library books. That's it. That's my life, and I can't even afford food right now. I keep thinking about my mother. Your mother, too. God rest her soul. Remember how she always said, "Your children are your retirement plan"? She meant it as a joke, sort of. But there was truth in it. She raised 6 kids with Dad, and when she got old, we all pitched in. We took turns having her for dinner. We made sure her bills were paid. We drove her to doctor's appointments. That's what families did. But things are different now, I guess. Kids move away, make their own lives, forget where they came from. Except Michael didn't move away. He's 5 miles from here, Sarah. 5 miles. I could walk to Lancaster General Hospital if my knees weren't so bad. I could see his office building from downtown if I stood on the right corner. 5 miles, and he might as well be on another planet. You know what the worst part is? It's not even the hunger, not really. I'll figure that out. Carol will probably be heading to Central Market tomorrow morning, and I'll swallow my pride and ask if she can pick me up some bread and eggs. Or I'll walk down to the Salvation Army on Queen Street and ask about their food assistance program. I'll manage because that's what I've always done. I've managed. The worst part is realizing that my son doesn't love me. Not really. Not in any meaningful way. Oh, he'll say he loves me if you ask him directly. He'll probably feel a twinge of guilt later today. Maybe even text me something like, "Sorry, busy day," or "We'll talk later." But he won't mean it. He won't actually do anything different, because if he loved me, if he really loved me the way I love him, he wouldn't have said, "That's not my problem," when I told him I had nothing to eat. He wouldn't have hung up on me. He wouldn't have made me feel like a burden, an inconvenience, a problem to be dismissed. I keep thinking about Emma and Logan, his kids, my grandchildren, and I wonder if they even know who I am. I wonder if Michael tells them about me, about how their grandmother worked herself to exhaustion so their father could become a doctor. Or does he tell them nothing at all, like I'm some distant relative who doesn't really matter? And I wonder what he'll teach them about family, about responsibility, about taking care of the people who took care of you. Will they grow up thinking it's normal to abandon elderly parents? Will they learn from their father that once you've achieved success, you can just cut off the people who helped you get there? God, Sarah, I hope not. I hope Jennifer teaches them better than that. The leaves keep falling outside my window. It's really beautiful this autumn day. The sky is that perfect blue you only see in October, and the trees are like they're on fire with color. If things were different, I'd put on my jacket and walk down to Long's Park, sit on a bench by the lake, watch the ducks, breathe in that crisp autumn air. Maybe stop at the Central Market on the way back. Pick up an apple dumpling from the Pennsylvania Dutch stall, that one that makes them fresh every morning. But I can't do any of that because I don't have the energy to walk that far. And I don't have money for an apple dumpling or even a bus fare, so I sit here instead, watching the leaves fall, listening to Mrs. Henderson's rake, smelling someone's wood smoke, and trying to understand how my life got to this point. I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I want to be clear about that. I made my choices, like Michael said. I chose to put him through school. I chose to work those jobs. I chose to sacrifice my own security for his future. But I didn't think sacrifice meant I'd end up here, alone and hungry, with a son who can't be bothered to help me buy groceries. I didn't think sacrifice meant being told, "That's not my problem." I guess I was naive. Sarah, I guess I believed all those things they tell you about family, about love, about how the relationships you build will sustain you when you're old. I guess I believed that kindness begets kindness, that giving everything to your child means they'll at least be there when you have nothing left. I was wrong. And the hardest part, the part that's making me cry again as I'm sitting here, talking to you, is that I'd probably do it all again. Even knowing how it turns out, even knowing that Michael would grow up to be someone who could say those words to me, I'd probably still work those double shifts and eat ramen and save every penny for his education, because that's what mothers do, isn't it? We give everything, even when we know it might not come back to us. We sacrifice even when we know the sacrifice might not be appreciated. We love unconditionally, even when that love isn't returned. But God, Sarah, it hurts. It hurts so much. The sun is higher now, almost noon. The autumn light is streaming through my kitchen window, bright and golden, and everything outside looks peaceful and perfect. A perfect fall day in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, leaves drifting down, church bells ringing in the distance, the smell of autumn in the air, and here I sit, An old woman with an empty stomach and a broken heart, wondering what happened to the little boy who once hugged me and said I was the best mom in the world. I guess he grew up. I guess he forgot. I guess, to him, I really am not his problem anymore.